Hello and welcome to this bonus episode of Weight Loss 360 with Boots Online Doctor. This is the place where our experts get myth-busting and answer the questions everyone wants to know. I'm Helen Thorne, comedian, podcaster and author, and today Dr. Zhara Damji, who's the clinical lead for women's health and menopause at Boots Online Doctor, will be taking us through the changes experienced in the menopause and why this can impact our waistlines, and importantly, what can we do about it? Hello, Dr. Zahra. Welcome in.
Thanks, Helen. Great to be here.
It's great. Look, menopause affects half the population. We need to know more about it. And so little was taught to us, when we're young women. But it's so great now that we have this wealth of information we can share.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot more people talking about the menopause, which is really important. I think it's also really important to think about what the menopause actually is. So the menopause is actually just a point in time. So it's a retrospective diagnosis where you haven't had a period for 12 months. But that doesn't mean that you only get symptoms at that point in time. Actually, there's a period before that called the perimenopause, where people often start experiencing symptoms, of which weight gain is certainly one of them, alongside things like changes in mood, brain fog, and change in sleep pattern. There's also a period called the postmenopausal period, which is just literally the day after you reach the menopause, where these symptoms can continue.
Gosh, lots to look forward to. So, Zahra, let's get to the heart of the matter. Why does the menopause have an effect on weight gain?
Weight gain is one of the most common side effects of the perimenopause and menopause, and it can affect around 50% of women. So that's a huge number of women that are going to be affected by weight gain. And studies have shown that women can gain approximately 1.5 kilos per year during the perimenopause. So that period of time can last for a number of years. So it may be that by the time someone reaches the menopause, they may have even gained up to 10 kilos, which is really significant. There are two reasons for this. So the thing that's happening mainly during the menopause is that we get a reduction in estrogen levels. And estrogen's really key for a lot of our functioning. And we also see a slowing of the metabolism. The combination of these things can mean that weight accumulates, particularly around the abdomen and the upper body. And we also see an increase in something called visceral fat. And we also see a slowing of the metabolic rate. And that means that we also lose lean muscle mass. So it's lots of things going on all at once.
So visceral fat is the fat that's stored around organs. That's sort of the inner one. That's not going, my hips are a bit bigger. This is actually quite serious because it's around, the vital parts of your body.
Absolutely. It's exactly where you don't want the fat to accumulate.
So there's a lot of hormone circus going on in your body. So why is nutrition then really important during the menopause?
So we've got to think about what the wider implications are around the perimenopause, menopausal time. And there are kind of two really key things to be thinking about. One is that there is a significant increase in cardiovascular or heart disease, as well as a reduction in bone density, so a thinning of the bones. And we know that during the menopause, from studies that have been done, that women don't necessarily kind of tick all the obvious boxes in terms of diet. So not everyone is having their 5 a day. Not everyone is having the kind of right amount of fats and sugars and salt. And there are often people who are having low levels of fibre or iodine or folate in their diet. So because of the reason that we know that people aren't necessarily having all the nutrients in their diet, it's really important that women don't think that they should avoid specific food groups or go on certain diets. So actually it's just really important not to restrict eating, but to be thinking more widely about what you're eating.
Now, I'm going to use, I feel like it's a swear word, carbohydrates. They've had a bad rep. I mean, can we still eat carbs when we're going through the menopause, Zahra?
It is actually essential that menopausal women consume carbs.
Woohoo!
Especially because we're looking for people to increase their physical activity levels. So without the carbs, they will result in the lean mass muscle being lost. So actually that's counterproductive to what we're trying to do with building up exercise. So there may be a group of people who need to be thinking about low glycemic carbohydrates, potentially if they're susceptible to insulin resistance, for example. But for most people, carbohydrates should be making up about a quarter of your meal.
That's right. You can have your brown rice, your brown pasta, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, protein. Now, protein is the magical thing, right? We have to have it with every meal. What are the other benefits of protein?
So protein's really important in making us feel full. It also helps with our cell health and building muscle. But it's important that it keeps people satisfied and reduces hunger, but also that it's a valuable source of important nutrients such as iron and omega-3, which are crucial for women going through the menopause. So again, just thinking about how much you need, it's probably about a palm size with every portion of your meal.
Calcium's another one, because I think you mentioned earlier on in the podcast about our bones deteriorating. And, there's lots of talk about, the increase of osteoporosis with people going through the menopause. So how much calcium is actually needed?
So, yeah, it's really important that we talk about calcium. And you mentioned osteoporosis. So for anyone who's not kind of sure about what that is, that's a thinning of the bones. And potentially if someone has very thin bones, they can be at increased risk of fractures or breaking their bones. So it's really important that we are looking to protect women from that. So if someone is known to have normal bone density and haven't necessarily been told that they have osteopenia, which is a thinning of the bones, or osteoporosis, which is a slightly worsening thinning of the bones, they require around 700 milligrams of calcium every day. If someone is known to have thinning of the bones, then they would need around 1,200 milligrams.
That's a lot of cheese.
That's a lot of cheese. Well, so the best sources of calcium are dairy foods. So you mentioned cheese, milk, yogurts. So it's just being mindful again of those things into your diet and ensuring that you are getting enough calcium, particularly through this stage of life. So we need about 2 to 3 servings of calcium each day. In terms of how much this is, we're looking at sort of about a third of a pint of milk, a small pot of yogurt, a sort of a matchbox size of cheese.
Oh dear, okay.
Yeah, a fair chunk.
Not a shoebox.
Not a shoebox.
A
little
matchbox. Okay, good.
Or maybe like a milk-based dessert or custard.
Okay, that's good. I think, I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm a bit of a dairy queen, and good to clarify.
It is important.
Yes. Yeah. Not too much, Helen, not too much. Okay, we've talked a lot about calcium and protein, and that's quite meat-based, yes. Dairy-based. What about our vegetarian and vegan friends? What are the options for them?
Yes, obviously that's really important. So we've got options like tofu, almonds, dark green leafy veg. So a few things that there are available for vegans and vegetarians.
And so we've got the food sorted, but what about exercise? Because I think there's been a lot of, really positive stuff you see on social media about, strength training and movement in menopause and how that can have, really beneficial effects on the body.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we know already that only about 40% of women are doing enough exercise, and actually when perimenopausal or menopausal women are thinking about exercise, they might not always feel so motivated. They might lack energy. They might have had poor night's sleep. So we really need to be thinking about what the kind of exercises are best, and it's really important. You mentioned about strength exercising, and that's really one of the non-negotiables. If somebody is thinking that they want to lose weight around the menopause and change their body shape because they are accumulating fat in the areas that they don't want to, then what we need to be thinking about is regular, consistent weight-resistant exercises. So 1 to 2 classes a week if you can. It's the most efficient way of increasing muscle mass and increasing metabolic rate. And by that, we're just thinking about simple exercises. So if you can't go to the gym, you can also do some of these things at home, like squats, press-ups, ankle taps, biceps curls. Those types of resistance exercises are really important.
When you're talking about resistance training or strength training, could you just expand on what you mean by that?
So weight-resistant exercise is about using either your own body weight or weights to try and build the strength of your muscles.
And that's what we know, that having more muscle mass is good for your metabolic rate, and also, you burn calories quicker, and you have to replace that obviously in menopause. So it's all good stuff.
Absolutely. And we know especially that women are losing lean muscle mass, and so it's really important to start building this back up and building up the metabolic rate.
Oh, just to ask, metabolic rate, just for those at home who don't know what that is, what is it actually?
Yeah, so we've obviously spoken about that a little bit, and it's the number of calories that your body's using at rest. So someone with a very fast metabolic rate will be burning lots of calories at a certain point, and actually as that slows down, the number of calories that you're burning is fewer.
And I think there's so many great free online classes, people can recommend, like just getting 2 1 litre bottles and filling it with sand or water, and they're great hand weights as well. So I think sometimes we feel like exercise can be expensive and time consuming, but even like 15 minutes of weight training is really, really beneficial for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you might not feel confident enough to go into a gym setting. It might just be somewhere that you're not really happy being. So absolutely lots of things you can do at home, maybe trying to do in your lunch break during a busy day at work, because we know that, it's not necessarily that you've just got lots of time to do these things. So it's just trying to find the opportunities as well.
Yeah, and I think incidental exercise that doesn't add any extra time to your day. So, the doing the stairs a few extra times, getting off a stop earlier from the bus, all those sort of things can be really beneficial. Now, supplements are another thing that we've talked about on the podcast. Have you got any that you would recommend?
So the only one we really recommend is vitamin D, particularly in this country because we don't get enough sunlight. So it's a really important supplement to be looking at for women in the perimenopause and menopause. And the daily recommended dose would be around 10 micrograms or 400 international units. And you can usually see that on the back of the packet in terms of the quantity that you need. We actually don't recommend any additional supplements unless there is a specific clinical need.
Okay. And vitamin D is really readily available, isn't it? In
Yeah.
pharmacy, you probably can get it at supermarkets and things like that. And it's not expensive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cheaper than a trip to Australia. So, Zahra, I've got one more question for you. Can nutrients relieve menopause symptoms?
So it's highly unlikely that the menopause symptoms can be controlled entirely by diet, but we do know that there are certain things to try and avoid. So, for example, caffeine, alcohol and spicy foods can actually trigger off hot flushes, which are one of the more common symptoms of the menopause period, and they can also disturb sleep. So really important to avoid those if you know that they are triggers for your symptoms. There's some limited evidence, and we see this particularly in different countries, that eating phytoestrogens can potentially help some symptoms. So phytoestrogens are found in foods like soy, nuts, seeds and grains, but this isn't for everyone. So it's just really important to be thinking about your diet as a whole rather than thinking that specific foods are going to actually affect your symptoms.
Dr. Zahra, I've learnt so much. I feel like I'm prepared for what's ahead of me. But just in summary, it can feel like an overwhelming time of our lives. Have you got sort of advice or takeaways for people, especially around weight gain? Because it can feel a bit overwhelming that, that's out of their control. They're doing the exercise. What advice would you give them?
Yes, we mentioned at the beginning that around 50% of women going through this period of time may experience weight gain. So it's really important to be kind of thinking about it. The real focus should be on eating well, eating a variety of foods to support all-round health, and just being mindful in what we're doing and remembering your strength and resistance exercises.
Excellent. Weight Loss 360 is a Fresh Air production with Boots Online Doctor. The producer is Ollie Seymour. Thanks for listening. We're here to help you on your weight loss journey. So remember to follow Weight Loss 360 wherever you listen to your podcasts. Next week, we'll be back with Sam and Ruth talking about why you should ditch that diet. Now, there's something to celebrate. Make sure you check out Boots Online Doctor Weight Loss Service for a whole load of other amazing advice and free resources, including a weekly live webinar where our experts can answer your questions. The information shared here is evidence-based to help you achieve and maintain weight loss. However, if you have any health concerns or questions, please consult your GP before making any changes to your diet or lifestyle. Remember, every small change is a big step towards a healthier, happier you.